bridge collapsed. The mountain road washed out. All the signs are obscured by fog. Your only directions are detours. Eventually it dawns on you. Sometimes you need to get lost to discover where you're supposed to be. Welcome to Merlin's Barn.
Welcome to Merlin's Barn, and Matt's at the helm this evening with a collection of randomness that we're going to follow and somehow or other knit together. Matt, what are we getting into?
So we got a little bit of everything going on. We've got James Krenov, the American Chestnut tree, a picture frame. It's going to be a bit of a Murderboard of an episode.
I like that. You're talking like the red threads everywhere and
stuff.
Oh,
yes. Yep, that's what this is. This is the threads of Americana and history here. So.
Should I have a tinfoil hat?
No, but there's nothing conspiratorial here, so it should be okay.
Okay. I'm still excited about the Murderboard, though.
So, bit of a background story. So one of my hobbies has been woodworking. Started when I was a little kid, pinewood derby cars, then helping my dad with projects. I still remember a kitchen stool we built. I think it may still exist.
I built one. They had us build one when I was like in the 5th grade, and I still have it up in the attic. It just needs to be put back together because it had an accident when I was in high school, I think, and I just haven't been able to part with it.
Oh, okay. Oh, what to work on that? We can fix that.
Save the stool.
Then, so later, I was recently married, and my dad was helping me with tools for the house, and he and I would go to auctions and buy old woodworking machinery and tools, some to keep, some to sell to pay for buying more tools. And during this time, he gave me a small lathe. The maker's unknown. I'd estimate it to be from pre-World War II, though. I used the lathe to make some tool handles, but it needs some machine work that's beyond my current abilities to repair, so right now it's set aside.
Grenades. No grenade. No.
It'd be a little small for doing the grenade handles. Talking about like the German ones?
No, I was talking about just putting a grenade in it and getting another one.
Oh, right.
Nah. You get a fun explosion, and then you just get to buy something you don't have to fix.
What's wrong with the lathe, though? It's kind of flat. Kind of a T-shaped chart situation. Probably do more damage to me than it would the lathe.
I'll probably just get a Volkswagen and put a grenade in it then. That's more fun.
That could be fun. So, but this lathe, it was sitting on this ungainly table, like the size of a kitchen table, which, if you're familiar with lathes, they tend to be like 2 or 3 foot long, or maybe 4 foot. This one's like 2 foot long and like 6 inches across. So a kitchen table was just a cartoonish structure to have a lathe on, which meant this 3 by 4 foot table was really in the way in my shop, particularly for not being used.
So you had the lathe on top of a kitchen table.
It's this kitchen table-esque object. Okay. That's what I'm going to get into now. So it was some sort of metal base, and then a wood part of the table. Because the metal base was like coffee table height, and then like a foot of wood above it in a frame. Which I'll get to that more about the wood in a little bit here. The motor, the wiring, the switch, they're all from the 1930s or early 40s. It's one of the switches you would have actually had from knob and tube wiring.
Oh, Jesus.
So, guessing it was also recycled, maybe from houses being torn down or houses being upgraded to, that modern 1950s wiring. So, the base is going to be set aside for a coffee table. The lathe will be repaired someday because I'm not going to part with it. Gift from my dad. But the wood, what to do with the wood? And that's where the story starts to go. So, I took the thing apart so I'd have some room, and that's when I realized that the wood in this thing was the frame and panel table skirt on the stand. It was actually old raised panels from a cabinet or a cupboard.
Oh, cool.
I'm
setting up my Murderboard now. I've got like a kitchen table. I've got a lathe base. Now I've got cabinet woodwork, and I've got my voice not existing on this for some reason or other. Okay. I'll move closer. We're over here. Does this work better?
I think you better, this way. I think it's a little directional towards me. Turn it back there with you. How's that?
Testing. Okay, it's got me a little bit better now.
Oh, okay. So I set the wood aside. I didn't really do anything with it for a little while. And then I needed a small tool tote for a living history event. So I pulled out some pieces of the wood and took them apart. So I noticed some curious details. The boards had been hand sawn and hand planed. The rails and stiles were pegged, but also had these odd headless wire nails. The panels are raised, which is a style that has come and gone through American and European furniture fashion repeatedly through the years, so it's hard by style to guess the age. But the wood was absolutely filthy, and it turned my hands black in a way that would not wash out. It took probably 3 days of washing my hands and my hair to get my skin to its normal color again.
Ew.
But the wood, once planed down, was very smooth and a nice light brown color. It was nice, but nothing spectacular. But when I put the oil wax finish on, dark brown and almost black streaks jumped out at me and made for most beautiful wood. Still, I had no idea what it was. I finished up the project, posted some photos and description to a woodworking and machinery restoration forum online. Then the answer came back. I had been working with American chestnut.
Chestnut just has the most beautiful grain in it. Because I tore down a chestnut barn several years ago and sold a bunch of it to a flooring company and then kept a bunch of it for just working with in the shop. And, oh, just so beautiful. Just like a little layer of shellac or oil on it. Or
yeah, it's really an incredible wood. I had already suspected from the saw marks and the construction that the wood was old, probably sometime between the Civil War and 1930. But this confirmed it. See, chestnut was an integral part of life for both humans and animals in the eastern U.S. for centuries, well before colonial times. From the same family of trees as the chestnuts we roast over an open fire at Christmas time, the American chestnut is related to the beech. It's one of the faster growing hardwood trees. The nuts provided food for deer, wild turkey. Don't forget, the turkey almost became our national bird and symbol of the U.S.
a very smart bird.
It also fed wood rats, black bears, and later the hogs of colonial settlers, as well as human consumption. Boxcar loads were exported to the major cities in the fall. The rot-resistant wood provided sill plates for cabins and homes at a time before pressure-treated wood.
I used it for the construction of sheds and such on my farm because it was just like, this is not going to rot.
That's awesome. They kept on using it from that barn.
Yeah, I used it from one barn to being parts of outbuildings and things like that, floors of outbuildings.
Very cool. So it was estimated that the American chestnut made up 20 to 35% of trees in eastern deciduous forest, especially in what is today considered Appalachia up through Pennsylvania and southern New England. To back up a bit further for a moment, in pre-colonial America, forest fires occurred roughly every 20 years. The chestnut was fire resistant and produced a lot of seeds, the chestnuts.
I didn't realize they were fire resistant too.
At least as a tree they are. I'm not sure the wood how well.
Well, yeah, wood dry, but yeah, as a tree with moisture in it. I just didn't know they were more fire resistant than other trees. That's neat.
That's part of how they kept on growing. Actually, that's a whole topic on its own. I'm trying to get too far into the weeds. See, the timber, the trees that built America and was exported back to England to make ships for the Royal Navy, owes its existence to regular fires. Oak is stronger when it grows fast, which it does recover and grow towards the sun before the next fire, while pines, grown slowly with tight growth rings or old growth, is stronger that way, and was in more demand for the masts and spars for tall ships. This began to change when the Europeans arrived in America and started stamping out the forest fires whenever they started. See, they used to burn about every 20 or so years, and now we don't have forest fires.
And this is sort of the problem we're seeing like out west and such, where there's no regular burns.
Yep.
So when it does start burning, you've got all that underbrush to just burn up too.
Yep. Yeah, I was in my research here. This.
Sorry.
No, that's exactly, that was part of it. So in the last 50 years, we've seen the wildfires just get worse and worse.
Because we don't like things burning.
But recently, we've actually started to re-evaluate that and look towards fire management more than fire suppression.
Yeah.
But if we keep going this tangent, we'll never get on with the story. So why do I keep using past tense? It's because of the chestnut blight. Introduced into the U.S. with commercial growing stock of Japanese chestnut trees around 1900, within a few years the blight spread through the entire range of the American chestnut and killed an estimated 3 to 4 billion trees by 1950. The blight's a fungus that spread in the air, landing on a tree, it gets under the bark and grows, splitting the bark and girdling the tree, killing it. Although in a bizarre Sisyphean existence, the roots of the trees killed 100 years ago can continue to produce shoots that grow for several years before succumbing to the blight again and again.
Oh no.
So you can actually go out into the forest in Appalachia and come across American chestnut trees that are still growing, but they'll get maybe 30 feet tall and then they'll die back again.
I think they're doing some sort of hybrid now or something like that.
There are, yeah. The American Chestnut Foundation is hard at work.
That's what they were. That's what I think Roger had on his farm. Because he was part of that foundation.
Yep. Yeah, they took 50% Chinese chestnut trees and 50% American, began with that crossbreed, and then have been continually rebreeding it back to American ones, and so now they're near 90%. Members of the American Chestnut Foundation can purchase the seeds to grow your own trees. There's restrictions on the use of the seeds of the chestnuts. You can't sell them or use them for commercial purposes. They're still considered a research item. And yep, actually, I was going to mention Roger. Said a friend of ours has a small stand on his farm in Maryland.
Sorry, I digressed early.
No, it's just we're in sync on this. So now we've gone off on these 14 tangents. The pieces of wood in my shop. I now noted that it's special.
Oh, wait, so we got to go back down the red thread to the other red thread. Okay, I think I know which thumbtack we're at now.
Right. So now this wood is special. It's part of American history itself. So I set it aside for some special project. I didn't know what it was going to be, but it wasn't very long before I came up with what to do with it. So out in Chicago is this gelato shop and entertainment venue called Sideshow Gelato. And the gelato scoopers that work at the shop, they're all also performing artists in the sideshow arts, magicians, contortionists, sword swallowers, and so on. Balloon artists. The sideshow, it was an outside show that traveled with a circus or carnival and was set up in a tent to the side of the main tent, or hence the sideshow.
Come see Dog Boy. Come see this. Come see whatever weird.
Exactly, and it is an American art form. I mean, it exists in other countries, but the sideshow is very much an American thing. Overall, it's receded, but it still has a large following. And this shop in Chicago is one of the places that plays host to it. They also sell some merchandise, including some sideshow-inspired artwork prints. And my wife Nicole picked one out last year of Wolfman, a anthropomorphized terrier in hobo pants and a rope belt standing in front of the sideshow tent opening.
It's Dog Boy's dad.
Basically, yes. And it's like, oh, that would be perfect to do with the remaining styles of those chestnut cupboard doors. So with the sideshow having its heyday in the 30s, the chestnut tree succumbing to the blight in that time, it just felt fitting that I should make the frame in the style of the arts and crafts movement, with lapped corners instead of more commonly mitered joints, and I pegged the frame with some square cherry wood pegs. It was a little tricky working with the wood. It was old. It was cut down to make the cupboard probably 75 years ago.
Frankie,
I got it back.
Get off my lawn.
No, it was 100 years ago. It was a cupboard. 75 years ago, it was probably made into a table. Now I'm trying to make a picture frame with it. As I work on it, I see the evidence of past use. I see the saw marks, the planer marks, the staining from the tannins around the bolt holes where it held up the electric motor for the lathe. And as I worked on it, I left my own marks as well. See, going back to one of the beginning push pins in this Murderboard, one of my hobbies was woodworking. And I didn't say I was good at it. It's a hobby of mine. And like any hobby or any passion, you can't just do it. You also have to study it and try to learn from others. And so lately I've been studying James Krenov. Now, a lot of people haven't heard of James Krenov. Many woodworkers haven't even. But
I know I've heard it before, but it's just there's so many names and so many things I read, I can't keep track.
So he was born in Russia in 1920, but then grew up primarily in Alaska, actually. He moved there when he was only a year old to Alaska.
That's probably why I know it then. Anything Alaska.
Yep. Well, then we get some Swedish tie-in also. So.
Oh, there we go. We've got Swedes, we've got Alaska, any Canada?
We
had a moose. We've got everything down.
I think I left Canada out of this story. I'm sorry.
No Canada, no moose. I'm out.
But during World War II, he was a translator in Seattle for the U.S. military for the ships coming from Russia that were docking there. So, but after the war, he moved to Europe and eventually to Sweden. That's where he studied furniture design. And when one thinks of Scandinavian furniture designers, you probably think of Hans Wegner or Arne Jacobsen, Boris Mogensen. These are some of the big names in the Danish and Scandinavian mid-century modern furniture movement. But those are all in big firms that do commercially produce furniture that you could go buy from Knoll and those stores. But James Krenov, he was a studio maker and an author and a teacher. He later returned to the U.S. and continued to teach and work up until his death in 2009. See, his approach, not only in construction but in design, was that of an artist. How the piece of furniture looked, how it felt, what emotions it evoked, all played into his process. So he built furniture more as artwork at a studio level.
I think the proper piece of furniture, though, really is a refined piece of a combination of art and functionality. I mean, just take a look at like the shaker furniture and stuff like that, where it's just so simple, so beautiful. The arts and crafts, I mean, all of them, it's art and function.
Yeah.
And done right, you just want to sit and stare at the most beautiful chair you've ever seen for hours.
Yeah. I say the only difference I'd say with Krenov was that he never converted the designs into mass production that they could be commercially made and sold. They were one-off pieces. So going with the art comparison, they were all originals. There were no prints.
Okay, now he's sounding really familiar to me, so I definitely have read up on him at some point.
So not too long ago, I was reading a book by him, which I say it's not so much a guide to woodworking, but on how to be a craftsperson. And the name of the book is The Impractical Cabinet Maker.
I'm just picturing Tim Burton style cabinets now.
There's a little bit of that going on.
Weird angles, the door doesn't shut. What's going on here?
Actually, it's as beautiful as the doors do shut. He'll do convex doors that are different convex curve than the cabinet is, and compound curves that blend together.
That's amazing.
It is really amazing stuff. What was interesting to me, and you mentioned the arts and crafts again too, and such, is that although his aesthetics clearly are mid-century Scandinavian, his mentality is much more of the arts and crafts movement of 50 years before. Which was the design aesthetic that I was aiming for with my picture frame. See, Krenov didn't design only for the moment, but he spoke of working in wood in the same terms as art. In fact, I got a little longer with one of his quotes. Fine things in wood are important, not only aesthetically as oddities or rarities, but because we are becoming aware of the fact that much of our life is spent buying and discarding and buying again, things that are not good. Some of us long to have at least something somewhere which will give us harmony and a sense of durability. I won't say permanence, but durability. Things that through the years become more and more beautiful, things we can leave to our children. And that's kind of the essence of Krenov's teachings, is that anything that you're working on, leave it beautiful. And it was important to me to do that with this wood that I was using, because here this wood is, it's a piece of Americana in a couple of ways.
Yeah, you just don't want to make doorstops out of it.
Yeah. And
most beautiful chestnut doorstop.
Another one of his another thing he speaks strongly about is leaving your signature on your work, or in his words, the understanding eye sees the maker's fingerprints. They are evident in every detail. Leave fingerprints.
Okay.
And so I did. I left my fingerprints, and so did whoever made the lathe table before me and whoever built the cupboard doors before them. The picture frame hangs in Nicole's studio now with 3 times used lumber. It's a quiet witness to American history, the sideshow, the chestnut tree, the arts and crafts movement, to makers, to artists. Maybe 50 or 100 years from now, somebody will pick up that frame, study it, maybe they'll decipher some of its history. Maybe it'll be turned yet again into another piece to be loved. See, commercially logged clear American chestnut disappeared about 100 years ago. Today, if you see wormy chestnut advertised, that was lumber cut later from a standing dead tree, which continued a little longer. All clear chestnut wood now is reclaimed, usually from barns being torn down, you had mentioned. In fact, Merlin, you and I have a project coming up to take down a garden shed that was built from already reclaimed chestnut beams.
Oh yeah, we were looking at that. This is up at a friend of ours' place, and you can see that the shed was built at one point, and then the beams inside. You can see the mortise and tenon.
Yep.
Where it had actually been something else.
Had been before. Now it's a knock together garden shed. So.
Sounds like the barn on his property is made out of, which was built in 1812. When I worked on it, I discovered it was made out of log cabins, probably from the 1700s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did not even know about that. Even more incredible. So, yeah, I look forward to see what we can do with that. It'll be something special. And it'll be seeing its third life also, whatever we do with that wood.
Maybe we put some of that into the gazebo project.
We could do that.
Yeah, that'd be
cool.
cool.
Be nice. So, there we go, Barn Owls. Thanks for following on this Murderboard of an episode.
What we expected, would like to see is that some people could actually get themselves some nice foam board and some thumbtacks and draw it out. See if you can actually make up the Murderboard to figure out all the layers of the picture frame. And
to help you out, I'll do a quick rundown of some of what we touched on. We've gone on woodworking, the chestnut blight, pre-colonial American woodlands, forest fire management, the arts and crafts movement, a Russian-American Swedish-taught furniture designer, the sideshow, craftspersonship, and art.
Dog boy. We got to remember dog boy.
Ah, yes. Dog boy. See, history is not linear. It's not a single thread, more like a tapestry. Be careful as you tug on it. You can soon end up in a tangled mess.
It's a wonderful mess, though. It fits in with all the detours and everything like that.
So that is what I came up with for tonight.
So that is our Murderboard of American chestnut and everything. And as with our other episodes, if that inspires you to think of your own Murderboard, or think of some other detour or side trip that you've been on, or something that went through many, many layers, send it in to us. You can find us on Instagram at Merlin's Barn. You can email us on Gmail, which is merlinsbarn@gmail.com. That's better for the longer things. And at some point, we'll have more sites and social media set up. Thank you so much for listening. Anything to add?
Just if you enjoyed this episode and you want more just Murderboard, string run all over the ones, I've got one right now that involves pumpkin floods and a town in West Virginia named after a South American freedom fighter.
I'm excited about both of these because I've never heard of the pumpkin floods. And what we were talking earlier, we should tie that in with molasses flood. So we can just do like the weird floods. And I really want to know why that town named themselves after the South American freedom fighter in the early 1800s?
Yes, I came across it in my studies and okay, I'm circling back to learn more about why and how this happened.
Yeah, so those will be fun ones. Those will be coming up. Thank you for listening. And once again, send in your stories so we've got even more to work with. We'd love to hear from you.